Now, Cape Town is facing a major water crisis with predictions that taps will run dry in May 2018. And after that, water will only be available at collection points. When dams hit only 13.5% full, almost all the taps will be turned off. Residents will be rationed of water supplies. They'll be given 25 litres of drinking water per person per day, which will be distributed at about 200 points around the city. Terry Winstanley joins me from our Cape Town studios. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Take us through the legalities of water regulations in South Africa.
Hi, thanks very much for having me on the show. The provision of water is regulated both by a national government and also by local government, in this case the City of Cape Town. So the city is entitled to impose water restrictions on potable water that it supplies to its residents. The national government has also imposed restrictions on the use of water for various purposes, including domestic, industrial and agricultural.
So the regulations which will need to be enforced to prevent perhaps mismanagement of water in Cape Town and across South Africa, are those being implemented already?
Yes, they are. Very much so.
Okay, and then speak to us about the introduction of restrictions for agricultural use in certain catchment areas within the Western Cape.
The National Department of Water and Sanitation has imposed a restriction on the taking of water for various purposes, including agricultural, where it is requiring agricultural users to reduce their water use by between 20 and 40% based on the average use over the last 5 years.
So Mayor Patricia de Lille's special task team is reported to be working with the World Bank on how to gain greater income from the sale of water. What are your thoughts on this? And legally, where would the line be drawn in terms of cost and who has to pay for water and what amounts they use?
Well, first of all, it's important to understand that water cannot be sold. It isn't owned by an individual. It's held in trust by the state for everybody, and then water use rights are allocated. So the sale would only be at the level of charging for the costs of obtaining the water, either from perhaps a groundwater source or the surface water source, or desalinating it, and the costs of treating it and reticulating it. But clearly, as water decreases, it will be necessary to charge more for getting it to us, as we have to pay for different projects, including the abstraction of groundwater and desalination, in order to provide the City of Cape Town's residents with basic water supply requirements.
When this discussion came about, there's also suggestion that there should be a special water tax over and above the normal water bill that some Cape Townians pay, so that the city's coffers can be filled and that people who can afford to pay more for water do pay more for water.
I haven't heard anything specific about this, but I can understand why there might be a need for it. Ironically, because people have reduced their water use, the city's income ordinarily generated by water tariffs has significantly decreased, I understand, by as up to 40%. So whilst it is expending more money trying to obtain water from new sources, it has a decreased income stream for this particular essential service that it must supply to its residents.
There's also been talk of plans to try and offset this shortage, plans to try and offset citizens in Cape Town suffering as a result of less water. One of them has been desalination plants, but a rebuttal to that is by the time that these desalination plants are built, all this money's been thrown into them, the drought will be over, there will be water and there will be white elephants. What's your view on that?
Well, I think in view of climate change, we must take a longer term view of the ordinary rainfall of the city of Cape Town, and I'm not properly qualified to express a view on that, but from what I understand, the prognosis long-term is that the city can expect to receive less rainfall than it has historically. But a possible other solution would be mobile desalination plants, which could address a short-term need, but needn't be the same cost as a very large, expensive, large-scale desalination plant. I just don't know enough about the economics of it.
That was Terry Winstanley, Director and Head of the Environmental Law Practice at Cliff Decker Hofmeyr. Thanks so much for your time.